So my first guest today, his name is David Quammen, and what he has to say is especially interesting and relevant to what we are facing right now. He has been speaking for more than a decade about this idea that pandemics are inevitable and that we should be doing something about it. And so he had a book that he wrote in 2012, Spillover, on the subject, and so we're going to have a conversation with him now. Hi, David. How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. It's good to be with you this morning, Greg.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for joining us.
Happy to do it.
Yeah. So I would love to. I became aware of your book recently. I wish I had become aware of it earlier, and I wish, more importantly, that people in powerful places would have become aware of it. I know you've published 16 books. You've detailed the relationship that humanity has with nature and so forth. But I really would like to drill down on what you started to find when you started to essentially what got you interested in this idea that pandemics were inevitable, and like who were the scientists you were talking to and how that conversation started before you even published the book.
Sure. Yeah. Well, this whole interest started for me probably about 25 years ago when I first started reading about Ebola virus. I got interested in Ebola, and then I did an assignment for National Geographic 20 years ago that involved weeks and weeks of walking across the Congo forest with a conservationist biologist, sleeping on the jungle floor, carrying food, hacking our way through the forest every day. He had a group of about 12 guys, Congolese guys that were helping him. And at one point, we walked through Ebola habitat. We knew it was Ebola habitat because there had been a human outbreak on the edge of this particular block of forest. So for 10 days, we were walking through this forest knowing that Ebola was there somewhere in the forest around us. We knew it was in what's called a reservoir host, which is the kind of animal that a virus lives in over time, permanently, inconspicuously, and then occasionally spills over into humans, as Ebola does. So I realized this was, we didn't know which animal it was. It was just there. It was sort of this spooky presence. We kept walking, and I kept thinking about this mystery of where the Ebola virus lives, and I realized this is all about ecology and evolutionary biology. So I got interested in the ecology and evolutionary biology of scary viruses that live inside animals and occasionally spill into humans. And that led to my book, Spillover. I started working on it probably in the late 2000s and worked on it for 5 years, traveled the world to forests and caves in southern China and other places where scientists were working on the subject of zoonotic diseases, scary viruses and the animals that carry them, and how contact with those animals by humans gives these viruses the opportunity to spill over into humans.
Can you share your core thesis from Spillover in terms of what is it that we're doing wrong that leads to this, and if there's anything that we can change?
Well, what causes, right, this is not something out at the weird fringe of medicine. This is dead center for human health. 60% of our infectious diseases fall into this category, zoonotic diseases. And that includes some of the old ones like bubonic plague and some of the scariest new ones like this coronavirus or like the SARS virus in 2003. All of those events, when one spills over into humans and causes an outbreak, a cluster of deaths, or in some cases an epidemic throughout a country, all of those instances are connected to one another. They're part of a pattern. And the pattern reflects things that we humans are doing. What are we doing? Well, you mentioned that there are now more than 7 billion of us, actually 7.7 billion, I think, right now, humans on the planet. We are smart. We are hungry. We are voracious for resources. We travel a lot very quickly. So every choice that we make, what to eat, what to wear, what to buy, what kind of electronic devices we might have, how many children we have, if we have children, how much we travel, all of those pressure on the natural world. We're pulling resources from the natural world. We're coming in contact with wild animals. We're invading ecosystems. We're cutting down trees and building timber camps and mining camps in tropical forests. All of that activity essentially shakes loose viruses, or gives viruses the opportunity to jump over, to spill over into humans. And if that happens, if a virus spills over into the human population and it can replicate, it can transmit from one human to another, then that virus has won the sweepstakes.
Okay.
It can travel around the world at the speed of an airplane and become one of the most successful viruses in the world.
Just as we're seeing now, this highly successful.
Just as we're seeing now. I would say that the virus that causes COVID-19, we call it SARS-CoV-2.
Mm-hmm.
That's the name of the virus. I would say it is one of the most successful viruses in the world right now in sheer Darwinian terms.
Wow. So it's easy for, I think it's easy for Westerners to kind of distance themselves from what's happening and why this stuff happens. Can you talk a little bit about, the action, our activities in the Western world and how they contribute to, these interactions with the wild world and shaking the tree and shaking viruses loose from those environments?
Right. Yeah, there's a tendency for people to say, especially people who say in the U.S. or in some of the Northern and European countries, to say, oh, that's the result of things that people are doing over there. That's the result of quote unquote bushmeat hunting and consumption in Africa, or that's the result of wet markets in China. People are capturing bats and civets and pangolins for food. That's caused by them. In fact, there's enough responsibility to go around. Things that we do are increasing the spread of Lyme disease in this country, are increasing the spread of West Nile fever, and also indirectly adding to the jeopardy of new spillovers, new opportunities for strange new viruses to pass from wildlife into humans. For instance, I've held this up, cell phone. If you own a cell phone, if you own a laptop computer, then you are a customer for a mineral called coltan, C-O-L-T-A-N, which a lot of people have never heard of. Coltan is important in electronics because it's used to make tantalum capacitors. You don't have a cell phone without tantalum capacitors. Where does coltan come from? Well, it's mined in just a few places around the planet, and one of those places is the southeastern corner of the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the coltan mines are in or adjacent to highly diverse Central African forest containing lowland gorillas, containing lots of different species of bat, lots of different species of rodent, porcupines, lots of different species of primate. So when we buy a cell phone, we put consumer demand into the system, into the super system for coltan. And we commission Congolese fellows to go into that forest and mine coltan. What are they going to eat there? Are they just going to eat rice? Are they just going to eat fufu? No, they're going to eat bushmeat as well. So that's one of the ways in which we share in this global responsibility, this connectedness, in the demands that we make, consumer and reproductive choices, putting pressure on the natural world, bringing wild animals and the viruses that wild animals carry closer to the interconnected human population.
Great, thanks for sharing that perspective. I mean, it's sort of non-intuitive in a way, but once you get your head into it, it makes sense of how deeply our activities kind of contribute to that process. If I have one quick question, and then we have to wrap up. We're doing these very quick 10-minute interviews, but if you were to somehow influence government to enact one policy, global governments, what policy would it be? Like, what kind of thing can we lobby for at the political level to prevent this kind of thing from happening?
Right. What we most need is, again, it's in your wheelhouse. We need connectedness. We have global connectedness in terms of people flying around and viruses riding around with them. We need connectedness of information better. Scientific information already has a high degree of connectedness, but public health information and public health policies, development of technology for fast diagnostics of new viruses, and then the political will to support the institutions that produce better healthcare technology, better public health policies, better scientific exploration, viral discovery. So I think it's for me, it's those four prongs. It's science, technology, public health, and then governmental policy. What we need is for those to be coordinated much better from country to country.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing these thoughts with us today, David. Appreciate it very much. I would love to chat with you another time sometime.
Sounds good. Okay.
All right.
Take care.
Take care.